Thank you for tuning in today. My name is David Gokhshtein, and this is Gokhshtein Unfiltered. And as I said, I do have a very special guest today. And this man has been fighting for, I would say, the XRP community. And he's been in the trenches with Ripple when it comes to Ripple's SEC case. And this man is appearing all over every single news channel that I can think of and all over our favorite podcast. This man, I will introduce you. His name is John. I don't know. I was going to say and be funny and do what Charles Payne did from Fox Business. Shout out to Charles. I was going to say John Denton, but I'm going to say John Deaton. Hey, John, what's going on?
What's up, David? Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you for coming back on. I mean, you were on about maybe a year and a half ago when we were talking about XRP. So I'm excited to have you on to go ahead and really dive deep into Ripple, obviously the SEC case, and even XRP in general, and then a few things about the crypto market, which I think I kind of looked everything over. I think it kind of relates. So for those that don't know who you are, the generic thing. If you would love to introduce yourself, because I don't want to, just say, oh, John's this guy that just appeared out of nowhere. No, John's had a successful track record. But John, go ahead, by all means, please.
I've been a lawyer for 25 years, and my practice has nothing to do with securities law or anything like that. I represent people who get diagnosed with a rare disease caused by asbestos. A lot of people see commercials for mesothelioma. But in 2016, I went down the rabbit hole of Bitcoin and crypto, and I bought Bitcoin and ETH and XRP. And those were my three primary holdings for a couple of years. And then, lo and behold, this lawsuit came about and the SEC dropped the lawsuit. And I didn't think much about it at the time because I assumed that the SEC would do what they normally do. And they normally say in this specific transaction by Ripple or Brad Garlinghouse on this specific day that constituted a security. Instead of that, what they went ahead and did was they claimed that all XRP, the XRP that you own, David, that I own, that your viewers own, no matter where we purchased it, no matter how we acquired it, whether we bought it as an investment or you received it as a tip for providing content or subscription or any of that. And they said that all XRP is a security, and from the beginning of time until today. And I realized what was going to happen. I knew that, Coinbase was filing for an IPO. They were going to delist it, and all the lawyers would advise these exchanges, listen, the conservative, prudent thing to do is just delist it until this case is over, because if the SEC wins, then they'll be able to come after us, at least from the time that they filed the lawsuit. And so I knew that would happen. And also the lawsuit made no sense to me. Clayton filed it on his walking out the door. And
what's up with that? How do you do? I don't even understand that. Like, last day, I'm leaving. Well, here's your suit. Bye.
Yeah, I mean, and think about the kind of suit it is, David. Is there anything bigger in the last few years? If you take away COVID and you think about global finance and trade, there's nothing bigger than digital currency, whether it's central bank digital currency, whether it's Bitcoin. It's the hottest topic in the world in the last several years, and you file a lawsuit against the third largest crypto at the time by market cap, claiming that the asset itself, the token, which really is just alphanumeric code, that is a unregistered illegal security. It is the most significant SEC enforcement action if you're not counting fraud. Take out the Bernie Madoffs, right? Yeah. If you're just talking about a strict enforcement case, it's the biggest case since the Howey decision in 1946, and you do it as you're walking out the door, and it made no sense. And so when I read the complaint, just by myself and a few of my friends, my daughter was on the complaint as well. I filed a writ of mandamus in federal court in Rhode Island, where I live, basically asking the judge to order the SEC to only allege the way Ripple sells it, that it's an unregistered security. And never in my wildest imagination did I believe that 68,400 people, in a year and a half later would join me in fighting the SEC. So that's how I got involved. And after I filed the writ of mandamus, the SEC objected and said that the Southern District of New York court is the only court of jurisdiction. So I withdrew it. I filed a motion to intervene in the case, or in the alternative, to be granted amicus status. And the judge basically granted me amicus status. What that means for your audience is...
Yeah, I wanted to touch on that. If you can elaborate a little bit, obviously in layman's terms, because we're out of our element here.
No, the literal definition of amicus is friend. So I'm a friend of the court, and the judge has basically said that because of the public interest of this case, and and the fact that there's 68,000 XRP holders who are trying to join, that she's going to allow us to participate, and I can write a brief, for example, at summary judgment, so that the judge sees our perspective, basically. What she said is, I want to hear their meaningful perspective, because they may view XRP differently than the way Ripple views it. Yeah. And in fact, David, what happened in this case was in the discovery phase, where there were legal questions, they're called interrogatories, were served on Ripple, and it asked Ripple to list every use case of XRP, other than cross-border payments. And Ripple basically said, that's how we use it. Look to this guy Deaton in the letter that he filed with the court, because I listed a bunch of other use cases for it. And so that's how I got involved, and that's how I got invited on these nice shows like yours.
I appreciate it. I mean, listen, I am I don't want to say a bag holder, because but I am into Ripple. I'm into XRP. I like the tech that has been built. I had David Schwartz on my show, and I think he's a genius. Absolutely. And most people don't even know that he worked on, Bitcoin. So to me, to see the XRP army come together, and you representing that is pretty cool. And, I really believe, and I've stated this so many times, that Ripple needs to win in order for our industry to get clarity, which it does not have currently. A loss would only go ahead and continue to bottleneck the industry in the United States of America. We have way too many innovators to go ahead and watch them just leave to other countries that are more accepting of blockchain technology and cryptocurrency. Not fair, not right. And this suit, to me, honestly, I look at it and it's a crock of shit. I really look, and I'm not just saying that because I'm holding a bag of XRP. Even if I didn't, let's take a step back. Let's put away, your blinders. If you're a maxi, hold off for a second. Look at it. Last day, Clayton walks off the job, hits with an SEC, hits him with a suit, or hits him with a case, excuse me, and then now he's in crypto.
Right. It's mind-boggling. Not only that, but what drives me crazy is that he was the chairman of the SEC, and he had the votes, David. He had Crypto Mom, Hester Peirce, who could vote for crypto, and he had Elad Roisman. And then so he had 3 votes. He could have implemented change. He leaves the SEC, drops a suit, and now he's giving editorial op-eds in the Wall Street Journal on how the SEC has to get it right. And my head wants to explode, because I'm like, dude, you were in charge and you had the votes. You could have provided clarity, and you're
do you think the safe, with Hester and the safe harbor that she wants to go ahead and implement, don't you think that would at least give all these companies, all these protocols an opportunity to build? Allow a business, it technically is a business. Let's call it for what it is. In a decentralized world, it is a business. Given a business 3 years to build, it's a sufficient amount of time, and then go ahead and make your pass judgment whether or not it's a security or not a security.
You're 100% right. And that's what I was getting at. He had the votes to implement that. And think about what you just said. What you would do if back then, if we go back to 2018, right? And you come out and you say, listen, here are these certain markers that you have to make based on sufficient decentralization. Let's take that as a factor, right? And you have 3 to 5 years to make it. You could have said to Ripple, here is a safe harbor. XRP's in the clear. You have 3 to 5 years to prove that you're decentralized enough that registering the token would no longer make sense. ETH, you have that. XRP, Cardano, whatever.
Yeah.
They all have it. And now these entrepreneurs would have these guidelines and they would be able to see, can they meet these markers? And if they meet them, they go on. And if they don't meet them, then maybe they get classified as security. I mean, the United States is completely being left behind. You know, the United Kingdom, right? They have a regulator called the Financial Conduct Authority, the FCA. Several years ago, they came out and said, listen, we're looking at digital currencies and we've classified 3 types: a security token, an exchange token, and a utility token. And then they looked at the individual tokens, including XRP, and they said, we classify XRP as a hybrid that acts like a utility and an exchange token, but they did not call it a security token. That's and right. So when you think about XRP, you've got the United Kingdom, Japan, Singapore, Switzerland, United Arab Emirates have all looked at XRP and declared it a non-security. And 95% of all XRP sales are outside the United States, according to Brad Garlinghouse. Yeah. So this 5% of XRP sales in the United States is being held up because of our SEC. Yeah. It is, you know, a crock of whatever you want to call it, because it's not about the enforcing the securities laws. If it was, then they would have said, Ripple, when you sold XRP or you gave an option contract to this venture capitalist for 1 billion XRP at 8 cents, whatever, yeah. On that day in 2014 or 13, because the ecosystem was not as developed as it is today, that was a security. Maybe the SEC could make a case like that, yeah. because as you said, when you first start off, the system isn't as decentralized as it is as each year passes. So if this case was about that, if it was about enforcing the securities laws, this case would have been over and it would have been settled by now, right? And because
but John, was there regulation back when Ripple came about? I mean,
oh yeah, you're 100% right. A lot of people don't know this. I'm glad you brought it up. XRP was actually the first regulated token in the United States of America, because in 2015, FinCEN looked at XRP and declared it a convertible virtual currency. They fined Ripple $700,000 and told Ripple, you must register your sales of XRP through FinCEN, not through the SEC. And the SEC knew about that, that settlement, because there's an information sharing between the agencies. And so think about that. Nothing happened. This is why I tell people in 2015, XRP is called a virtual currency, and you gotta comply with the banking laws of the US, not the securities laws. Then in 2013, the SEC did a memo on XRP in 2018, and they didn't recommend enforcement. They didn't recommend cease and desist, which means they looked at it and didn't declare it a security. Then in January of 2019, Coinbase went to the SEC about XRP and said, we've run XRP through our framework for what is a security or not a security. And we, with our sophisticated securities lawyers, right, who used to work at the SEC, we determined XRP is not a security today. And we're going to list it next month unless you tell us otherwise. The SEC didn't say anything. February 2019, XRP is listed on Coinbase. I got one more thing to tell you about. Now we fast forward to June 2019, and Ripple files a notice with the SEC informing them that they're buying 9% of MoneyGram and they're going to transfer XRP to MoneyGram for their cross-border remittances. The SEC allows that to happen. And then you fast forward, that's June of 2019, and then you fast forward as Clayton and the Director of Enforcement, Mark Berger, and Hinman, and they're all walking out the door, they drop this lawsuit. Now,
Which makes no sense.
It makes no sense, right? It makes sense that, something's up. That's what makes sense, right? There's other motives. There's other motives involved. So I'm with you 100%.
Well, if Ripple, if Brad and company consistently went and asked the SEC for clarity, like I know there was for one thing that was told to me, that they kept on asking, well, how did Ethereum go from a security to a non-security? Can we have details on that so we can then go ahead and fit in line the same way Ethereum did? No answer. No
Absolutely.
answer.
Absolutely. Matter of fact, we know now from the discovery in the Ripple case that after Bill Hinman gave that Ethereum speech on June 14th, 2018, where he said, current sales of ETH are not a security, we know for a fact that Brad Garlinghouse and Joel Katz, the person, David Schwartz, the CTO that you've interviewed, they went to Hinman and Clayton and had a meeting in August, 2 months after Hinman's speech. And we've got the notes from those meetings. And Brad Garlinghouse said to Jay Clayton and Bill Hinman, Ripple is, quote, living in purgatory because you gave ETH a free pass. Exactly. And you didn't mention XRP, like what's going on? And David, they didn't tell him, oh, it's a security, that's why. They said, okay, well, look, tell us more about your business. We'll talk about that later. Keep talking with us, blah, blah, blah. And of course, they cooperated. And look what happened as they're walking out the door. So there's a lot of shady stuff going on, man.
I don't understand how Ethereum goes from being, and this is nothing against, Ethereum. I'm sure, again, yourself, obviously the attorneys, the counsel for Ripple, I'm sure they don't have beef with, Ethereum, but they have to use Ethereum. I think people get this a little bit wrong because the ETH maxis get mad because, ETH's being thrown into the case, and then the Bitcoin maxis are getting mad because they're being thrown in because Brad comes out and says, Bitcoin and Ethereum, and and people get angry, but I mean, there's a case, you have to make examples, right? I mean, like you have to, and the biggest, to me, forget about Bitcoin, the biggest example is Ethereum. It always comes back to Ethereum and how they became, or went from, at least from everything that I've personally read, and what has been told to me is how they went from a security to a non-security. And that speech, somebody said that Hinman's speech can technically be pushed away. And I wanted to ask you that question. Can his speech be pushed away to the side where it does not matter? It makes no sense in the current case that Ripple's in with the SEC. Is that true?
Well, that's what the SEC is trying to do. They've actually disowned that speech. They've said that it's just his personal opinion. They had Bill Hinman sign an affidavit saying it was just his personal opinion, and that the SEC, the lawyers told the judge, the SEC's never actually taken an official position. That was just his personal opinion, and it means nothing. And just recently, Gary Gensler, who has been asked several times about ETH, won't say that ETH's not a security. He only came out recently, a few days ago. That's what Charles Payne and I talked about, where he said he, quote, is only comfortable calling Bitcoin a commodity. And
which I want to talk about. Let's not forget that. That's a big.
Absolutely. So they're trying their best to just act like the speech never happened, even though it's on their website, even as you and I are speaking right now. And it clearly was guidance. And if you go to the speech itself, Bill Hinman says, putting aside the fundraising that accompanied the launch, because ETH had an ICO. There was no blockchain. There was no Ethereum blockchain. They raised 18 million allegedly, and they used that money to build the blockchain. that is by definition a security.
Yeah.
But then Bill Hinman said, there was sufficient decentralization occurred. Now, a lot of people disagree with him, but that's what he said. And he said that, and Jay Clayton said it as well, that it is possible for something to start off as a security, but transform later into a non-security because it's no longer just that entrepreneur or promoter who is responsible for the blockchain. Basically, you know what I mean? And
it makes no sense. Like you're saying these things, and it makes no sense when it comes to Ripple. I know people have their own agenda with Ripple and they want to twist the narrative. But honestly, if you just sit back and you think about what you just said, it makes no sense that Ripple even has to, literally sit in court daily and go over this stuff and like try to make an argument that, they fit in line with Ethereum. This should be an easy, 1-2 and continue on your day. Like for me, the way I'm trying to be unbiased as well.
Listen, a lot of the ETH people are mad at me because I bring out the free pass and I talk about the conflicts of interest that Bill Hinman had. His law firm was a member of the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance when he gave ETH the free pass. And the investors from A16 who helped write his speech, he's now a partner there. There's some real big conflicts of issue and appearances of impropriety. But I have to remind people, I own ETH. It's not about the token. It's about our securities laws where the government is picking winners and losers, and there's not even any reason or rhyme to why they're picking one as a winner and one as a loser.
But if they keep on saying that they're trying to protect us, how did they protect us when they went and handed a case to Ripple and said, literally, we're putting a case on you. And, Brad comes out before the SEC, Brad came out first with it. And then the next day, the SEC officially, it makes it official. I remember what happened, especially being a holder. I remember it being at a certain point, it went down first when Brad said it, and then another hit to the face when the SEC finally made it official on their site. How did that
$15 billion in market cap?
So then John, tell me, how does this help? How did this help essentially the retail buyer who went into XRP, continued to accumulate bags of XRP, and then you drop this on us? We lost, the retail buyer lost. And if you felt this way the entire time, then why did you let XRP stay on exchanges? Absolutely. Like you allowed exchanges to allow us to buy XRP. You did not protect us. You hurt us.
Right. And like I said, remember, Coinbase went to them. They allowed it to be listed. And remember, they allowed Coinbase to go public while selling XRP.
Exactly.
So you're allowing a company to go public that doesn't have a broker dealer license to sell securities as they're selling XRP, and then you turn around 6 months, 9 months later, or a year later, whatever it was, and then say XRP is an unregistered security. It makes no sense. It isn't protection. And I tell you what's really, really will make you upset as a retail holder, as an American, as a citizen, is that on December 17th, a former SEC chief, Joseph Grunfest, who teaches at Stanford Law, he wrote a letter to Clayton, to Hinman. Hester Peirce got a copy. They all got a copy. And he brought all this up. And he said, listen, it's been brought to my attention. And he helped ETH investors. So he is, not just Ripple. He helped Joe Lubin and Vitalik, and all of them worked with the SEC before. But he came out and said, if you drop this lawsuit, there's no reason to do it. There's no exigency. You're not claiming fraud. So you've allowed it to happen to trade for 7.5 years in the United States. You haven't given them any kind of rulemaking. You're just dropping this lawsuit, and you're going to destroy innocent holders. Yeah. He put that in a detailed letter. And he also, here's a guy who believes in the SEC. He also said, There's no material distinction between ETH and XRP. And by you doing this, it really calls into question your motive of why you're doing this. This is like a former chair, chief of the SEC calling them out, saying what you and I are talking about, this makes no sense. You're going to hurt the people that you're trying to protect. And look at how they fought me and the XRP holders. They attacked me as the attorney to the court. They said all kinds of stuff about me, literally, and they objected to us being even involved and being heard. This is not about the protection of, listen, stop protecting us then. If this is your protection, stop it, right? And so, listen, man, I went on record, I told this to Charles Payne, I think Gensler is going to sue, Binance or a couple exchanges, maybe Coinbase, I don't know. And he's going to claim that they're selling unregistered securities, even though he won't say which ones.
So, so here's where, and this is where I talk about clarity. There is no clarity. I don't care what anybody, like somebody told me there is. I'm like, there is absolutely no clarity. I personally, I'm probably not the smartest guy in the room, but I don't see any clarity. When you have the CFTC say that all cryptocurrencies in their eyes are commodities, then you have the SEC that says that, well, in their eyes, everything's a security. Well, now Bitcoin is a commodity, though everything else is essentially a security. And you have all these other agencies, you named it earlier, 2015, them saying that XRP, fintech, FinCEN, they went ahead and said that it was a virtual currency. You have so many agencies that have different perspectives of what cryptocurrency is. How can people build, and how can people even feel confident going in? There potentially, like, you go into something right now, or I'm just gonna bring up XLM because it's just thinking about it. They go into XLM, same thing can happen to XLM. Tomorrow, all of a sudden, the SEC says, "Oh, you know what? We're dropping the case on XLM here. Stellar, we're bringing it to you."
Yep, and listen, you were right when you said earlier when we started talking that this case is bigger than just XRP. If the SEC is successful, I think you said that Ripple's got to win, and that is I agree with you 100%, because if the SEC is successful and XRP is declared a security today, then every altcoin on the market is going to, almost every altcoin, I won't say every altcoin, but almost every other altcoin. XLM would be a security. ETH would be a security. Correct. Algo would be a security. You could name them one after the other because, Ripple didn't do an ICO. Correct. They went through venture capitalists. You can go on these pre-IPO companies that sell shares like Link2 and other ones. You use XRP, the currency, to buy pre-IPO shares of Ripple if you're an accredited investor. Correct. Right? And so there's an example where you're actually using the XRP to actually buy a security of Ripple. Yeah. And so absolutely, if they lose, then everything except for Bitcoin, maybe not Litecoin, maybe not, Dogecoin or Shiba or one of those, but anybody, ETH 2.0 would be a security because it's going to proof of stake. They're upgrading the system. I'm just giving you an examples that this case is of significant importance, and we're really not going to get anything from Congress. I mean, with that Roe versus Wade decision, I'm just giving you an example. Passions are inflamed. I'm not going to get into the decision itself, but they're going to be talking about abortion and guns, right? That's all that these politicians in an election year are going to talk about. And so do we really think Congress in the next 6 months to a year is going to pass some legislation that's going to give us clarity? Doubtful, which means this decision, when it comes down, would be the only clarity we have. And if that clarity is that XRP is a security, then we're all in trouble. And so I tell everyone, you could hate Ripple, man. You could think XRP is a shit coin all you want. Unless you're a Bitcoin maxi, right? if you believe in Cardano or you believe in Algo or any of them, you need to be rooting against the SEC in this case.
For sure. I don't remember a time where anybody from, and I'll speak from Bitcoin side, I guess. I remember Bitcoin actually rooting for the SEC to go ahead and, or I don't remember them ever saying we really want to hold hands with the SEC. I mean, I don't remember these things. And then I remember obviously the Ripple case came down. Well, the SEC threw that case at Ripple, and all of a sudden, yes, this is great. The SEC will finally take out Ripple. What are you talking about? That it's not just Ripple. It's going to take out all. Look, when we talk about Bitcoin, I'll speak specifically as an individual myself. When we talk about Bitcoin, we talk about monetary stuff. We talk about how it's opened the doors up. We'll use an example, El Salvador. El Salvador has accepted it as a legal tender. Great. Well, in a few years' time, we can look back and see exactly how it's worked out for El Salvador. But to go and just sit there and say, like, I'm happy and I can't wait until the SEC crushes Ripple and XRP, the vaporware, in the way they like to describe it, it doesn't know good for this space. Like it absolutely does not do, like we're supposed to be building. Like I remember coming into this space and it was all about building. It was building and together, and there was no salt. There was no trolling. There was like, how do we build, and how do we build a free market, and how do we take control of our money? And I don't see how, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't see how Ripple affects Bitcoin in any way.
It doesn't.
I'm sorry, John, real quick. I just want to say, my grandmother is never going to get into cryptocurrency, at least not right now. She's still going to be using the banks. If Ripple has technology to make transactions faster and replace the outdated SWIFT system, if it can go ahead and do that, I can send money instead of waiting 4 to 5 days to send money and having a hit for somebody in Japan. If it can be done instantly, what is the fucking problem? What is the problem?
I bought a t-shirt that has Bitcoin, ETH, and XRP logos on it. And on the back, it says crypto maximalist, right? That's the kind of maximalist I am. I want to say to these Bitcoin maxis, a lot of them hold themselves out libertarians. Well, libertarian doesn't rush to the government and say, oh yeah, thank you, government. Thank you for SEC for crushing innovation. I view it I view it as insecurity. And I have more money in Bitcoin than I do XRP, right? So it's not like I'm bashing Bitcoin, but you are 100% right. And XRPs shouldn't even be viewed as a threat. But I think that they think this Bitcoin is going to solve every issue around the world in every application. To me, it's just nonsense that we're not going to have 20,000 cryptocurrencies, right? Exactly. Brad Garlinghouse says 99% will fail. If 99% fail, that still leaves 200, just to give you an idea. Yeah. So, we're going to have a multi-chain universe to some degree, but XRP, what you said, what these banks do is that they have these nostro accounts where they have to tie up currency in that foreign market, right, in order to make this exchange. Well, with XRP, they don't have to do that. So it frees up that liquidity that the bank doesn't have, which goes into the market and improves everything in our, the economy itself. And so it makes no sense. The Bitcoin maxis are going to just view everything other than Bitcoin, as a shit coin. My problem with them, that's fine. But now when you're doing what you're saying, and they are doing it, when they're celebrating the government and its overreach into this industry, that's where, to me, you're being contrary to what your fundamental views are supposed to be. You know what I mean?
and also watching mainstream media, and we talked about this a little bit earlier. And one reason why I would never sell my company or have any mainstream media come in and partner up, because I don't want the narrative. I recently watched the news, and when they bring on somebody, they don't discuss anything but Bitcoin. And if they were to move into the subject of anything else, you have Bitcoin maxis that go on and they state, well, Bitcoin, and then there's cryptocurrencies.
Right.
And that can really confuse people just coming into the space, because Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency. But it's like, we're going to separate ourselves. We're Bitcoin. We're not a cryptocurrency.
Right.
I don't know. I've read the white paper. I kind of did my due diligence. You are a cryptocurrency. You've done a phenomenal job.
You're based on cryptography.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't get it. And I sit and I watch some of these anchors, and they're like, they just hand these people the ball. They don't question it. And what happens is like, people that are new to the space or try to enter in, they believe it. And they don't give these other protocols, which do bring something to the table, a chance. And that I swing back to Ripple. I mean, I said this earlier, and I'll say it again, and I said it on multiple podcasts. There are people that will never get into cryptocurrency. There are still people that won't get into emails. It is what it is. You're not going to convince them. The banks are not going anywhere. I don't believe JP Morgan's going to disappear. I don't think Bank of America is going anywhere. I don't believe the banking system, the big boys are leaving. So if you do have a system that can go ahead and make transactions faster and get rid of the old Swiss system, what is the problem? It doesn't affect you, Bitcoiners. I'm a Bitcoiner, by the way. I have a bag of Bitcoin just like you, Ethereum. I have these things. I'm not rooting for Bitcoin to fail. But you know what? If we continue on this path, and I'm going to speak to the Bitcoiners here, if you continue, Maxis, to go ahead and have this narrative, Gen Z will look at you, and you will, in this, I know this because I've already spoken to Gen Z when I was out in New York recently. You look like old finance. We escaped from old finance. You look like old finance now in the decentralized world. That is not the narrative. I don't believe that was Satoshi's narrative. He, she, or them to go ahead and go out there and belittle people and shit on people. I don't believe that was the vision. I don't believe that to be so.
No, I think that you're right about Gen Z too, because all they're going to look at these Bitcoin maxis as the new Rockefellers and Rothschilds of the world. You know what I mean? That's all. You're just replacing the old system with, new money.
Correct.
In the form of Bitcoin.
That's it.
You know what I mean? And I agree with you that the big banks aren't going away. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a JP Morgan or Goldman Sachs, when, all of a sudden they're picking up the Celsiuses of the world or something like that. You know what I mean? Because I think
Goldman said, or they wanted to go ahead and raise $2 billion to buy them. I mean,
right. And so, and I personally think that crypto is one of the few instances where us retail, we front ran the institutions and the hedge funds, and they're crashing the market, and they're going to get in and they're going to buy the bottom or near the bottom. And then all of a sudden you'll see the JP Morgans and the Goldman Sachs giving targets of Bitcoin at 100,000, probably not saying that they'll say it by the end of the year, they'll say 100,000 by the end of the year, meaning September, October, they'll be like, oh, in the next 18 months, I bet Bitcoin goes to 100,000 because they got in, whether it's at 12 or 15 or 19 or whatever the bottom's going to turn out to be.
We only talk about manipulation when the markets go down. We don't talk about them when they go up. That's the human characteristic that we have. I want to ask you real quick on the Loomis bill. What do you think the chances of that bill? A lot of Bitcoiners actually are upset about the Bitcoin maxis. I think I should separate the two because Bitcoiners and Bitcoin maxis, two different clans there. But it's funny that I have to say that. I feel like it's just like a sporting event going on.
It is. It's like I think that this tribalism is really akin to, your 76ers fan versus, a Phoenix Suns fan. And,
it's crazy.
You just root for your one team, your one token. And it's crazy. But I think that what you're going to say, I think is they were upset that Ethereum got put in there.
Yeah. They're like,
Right.
okay, so like, you put this in, what a trash of a bill. I've been, I read comments every single day. I'm on, I mean, people think I'm psycho, but I'm sure you're working all day. I mean, I'm 15, 18 hours in working, and you're reading social media and you see all this. How dare they put this in? I thought they were on our side. What do you mean our side? We're all on the same team. That's why I said, like, what team are you? What team are you playing on? I mean, what is happening?
Well, what I want to say to them is, don't the Bitcoiners believe in a free market? If XRP turns out to be a shitty investment that you and I made, because the market decides, so be it. So be it. But it shouldn't be because some regulator who was walking out the door decided otherwise. You know what I mean?
Let me lose. Let me lose.
Let me lose. And let Bitcoin win on its own. If Bitcoin and the Lightning Network is going to solve every problem and every use case, and it's going to be on one blockchain for the rest of the world, sure, let it prove it. But don't get this regulatory advantage and run to the congressmen and the senators and say, oh, we just want you to bless Bitcoin and everything else is a security. That's bullshit. And that runs afoul of how a Bitcoiner is supposed to think. A Bitcoiner is supposed to be about a free market and letting the best technology win.
When I came into this space and I was being, schooled on and educated on the space in general, it was like, we're here to build. We're here to get away from the program that we have been put in. When you went to school, you weren't taught economics or finances. Right. This is a system set up where, you become a worker for the 1%. The 1% sit back and you go ahead and work. Why would I teach you anything about economics? You become smart. And that means you would become an entrepreneur and you would have an opportunity to go ahead and be successful. We don't want that. No. And this is, to me, is freedom. This is is it a guaranteed opportunity? No, but if this is an opportunity though, which once in a lifetime, everybody says once in a lifetime, generational, gains here are happening. We want everybody to be a part of the process. The way they speak, again, and I go back to it, you're going to, a lot of people hate Bitcoin because of the maxis. They don't hate Bitcoin. You can't hate code. I don't know how you can hate code.
I don't either.
Because then you would have to explain it to me. I can't hate XRP. It's code. I can hate a maxi,
right, or whatever it is. That's all it is. It's a QR code, man.
How can I hate them? Like, I disagree with the maxis, but I can't hate XRP. I can't hate Ethereum. Ethereum, has done a hell of a job. It's opened up a new space, as we know as the NFT space, non-fungible tokens, which has been opened up. We're creating more babies. We need, and you said something about free market, which catches me. Free market. Which one do we want? Do we want a free market or do we want regulation? Because when we're winning, I don't hear anybody talking about free markets. I mean, regulation. But when we're losing, I hear all the regulations all come in. Oh, this is no, absolutely. We need now regulation.
Listen, I don't want to pick on him because he's a brilliant guy. But, if you take someone like Michael Saylor, he wasn't talking about regulation a year ago. Right. But when Bitcoin goes to 17.5, and you're $2 billion under, then all of a sudden you want everything. You want this regulatory clarity where you're blessed, your project, your token's blessed, and everybody else is regulated to death. That's not the system that we believe in. The SEC is supposed to protect you and me from fraud. They're supposed to protect you and me from pump and dump scams, right? Scammers. That's what they should be doing. And there are those things you and I know in this industry. Yeah. Focus on that. Don't focus on a token that you allowed the MoneyGram to use and Coinbase to list with their IPO and 7.5 years of public trading and then turn around and say, oh, no, we changed our mind. We think that's a security and always was. Don't do that because you're not protecting anyone except for maybe some incumbents and maybe the incumbent financial system. You know what I mean? And you're letting them catch up. Do
you, before I touch on a few other things, do you believe, so I want to gauge your opinion. Obviously, you're deep in this case. And do you, number one, was there a settlement offered to, because this has been thrown around social media. So I'm going to ask you, because I can't figure it out. Was there a settlement thrown from the SEC to Ripple to say, let's squash this? Or is that just hearsay?
No, I'm sure that there, and if you go to that Grunfest letter, there was some serious settlement talks on before the lawsuit was filed. I personally don't believe there's been serious settlement discussion since the lawsuit. Do I believe that the SEC went to Ripple and said, if you pay a fine and for, 25 million, 50 million for these early sales of XRP, and we'll just have the status quo, but we won't say whether XRP today is a security or not. Sure, that's possible. And Ripple, there'd be no reason for them to agree to that.
Yeah.
In order for them to move forward and in order for XRP to be relisted, it's going to have to be a decision that says that today's XRP is not a security. If we don't have that decision, then there's not going to be liquidity that returns in the United States. And that's what it comes down to.
What do you think happens? What do you think happens at the end of the day? Does Ripple win, or does the SEC win, or do they settle? What are you thinking here happens?
I think that if the judge comes down any minute now and decides that the emails and the documents that she's already said need to be turned over to Ripple, there's emails and there's notes in there. I think that if they're forced to turn that over, it'll settle. The question is, will they be forced to turn that over? Because those documents are most likely, they discuss XRP. Hinman had 68 emails to staff members, and they had edits of the speech. There were over 58 different drafts of that speech he gave. And so was XRP in it at first, not in it? Did someone suggest it? If that has to be disclosed, then I think we could see a settlement. If that doesn't happen, then I think it's going to go to a judgment. And I think that I'm confident that the judge will rule that today's XRP is what the judge did in Telegram. It's just code. It's not a security per se. It's like any other commodity. It could be used as a security in a scheme or marketing or packaging, but it's not in and of itself. The right result is probably that, some very early transactions of Ripple, when they, the first, second, or third ones, maybe the judge finds that those were securities, but that today's not. So I think Ripple's going to ultimately win, even though a win could mean, they paid 25 million for some specific transaction. I don't think the SEC is ultimately going to be successful. And I think if Gary Gensler, as a politician, is faced with a huge loss when he could agree to a settlement, trust me, David, if they went to Ripple right now and said, pay $100 million and we will agree, you agree that it was a security in the early years, and we'll agree that today's XRP is not. Ripple would write that check today. And a lot of people just, absolutely, because it gives them, there's no appeal.
But would it give the entire space, because Brad's mentioned that, he wants to give the entire space clarity and he's going to fight tooth and nail to do so.
Well, if they were to say XRP moving forward, current and future sales of XRP are not securities, I have no doubt that they would sign a check immediately, because if Ripple wins, the SEC can still try to appeal it to the Second Circuit and the Supreme Court, and it would just be this cloud. Even though it would be a big win, and the exchanges may relist it, there's still, who knows what the appellate court could do. Could they come down and say that the judge was wrong? And so it just gives them peace of mind and gives them clarity to move forward with their business plan. So, but it's only contingent on ongoing and future sales.
Yeah.
being non-securities.
But
So,
Ripple today is not a security.
I agree 100%.
No, but like they're stating it's allegations.
Right.
It's being they see SEC sees it as a security, but it's not a security.
But listen, and here's what I tell people. You and I are allowed to go on Nexo or Celsius or other platforms and stake our XRP if we want. We don't need Ripple to obtain a financial benefit.
Correct.
That alone, David, takes it out of the Howey, because in Howey, you have to rely on the efforts of the others,
Correct.
Of the promoter to give you a financial benefit. The fact that you take possession of your XRP and you can loan it out and collect interest, you could collateralize it and take a loan out using it as collateral, that takes it outside of the security equation. And so, it's unfortunate because we don't have clarity, but it's clear that the tokens today, right, Algo, XRP, all of them are not securities, but we have this, regulator who wants to come in and take over this market. Yeah. Even though the other regulator, the commodities, CFTC, is saying they have it, right?
So that's where I lead to. One, does Ripple's victory replace the Howey test for the entire space? Does it completely, eliminate the Howey test moving forward?
A total victory, yes, I think so. A total victory.
The CFTC. Now, we talked about free markets and regulation, right?
Right.
Would it benefit us having the CFTC overlook the space rather than the SEC?
Absolutely. The only thing the SEC should have jurisdiction over is a pure ICO. If someone's going to crowdfund a token and then go build the blockchain, right? If they're going to do that, then the SEC could be involved. But if you're talking about a cryptocurrency that's been marketed and traded for the last 8 years, it should fall under the CFTC because they really are more akin to a commodity, right, than they are a security.
Now, Bitcoin being stated, or Genslinger, Gary coming out there and saying, hey, I think it's out of all of them, I think it's a commodity. Can't others use that to say, like, hey, hold on, you guys said Bitcoin's a commodity. Well, look at my platform. Look at my protocol. Can anybody go ahead and use that in their case to go ahead and fight?
Well, it's very similar to what you're getting at. It's very similar to that Hinman speech where he said Bitcoin and ETH were not securities because companies, and Library was one of these. I'm sure you've heard of the Library,
correct?
And they were being sued. They actually went to the SEC and they had a PowerPoint presentation where they said, look, our LBC token is even more decentralized than the ETH blockchain, and our users are using it as a user token, not a speculative investment as much. And they made those comparisons, but that's why the SEC is walking away. And so, but you're right, an entrepreneur would say, look, my token is even more decentralized than Bitcoin because, and then maybe they point to 4 miners controlling 50% of the hash rate or something like that, and they can draw comparisons. David, the SEC doesn't like to give clarity because once you do, an entrepreneur such as yourself will then go in and say, okay, that's the test I got to meet. I got to meet those guidelines. I'm going to meet them. And then they don't get to enforce and engage with all these lawsuits because you met those guidelines. They prefer to keep it vague and unclear, like you keep saying. There's no clarity. Because if there's no clarity, then it allows them to say, you know what, we're going to sue you. We're not going to sue you. I mean, look how they went into BlockFi and they took $100 million. Did that really help? The 20% of employees who got laid off at BlockFi, that $100 million, the tax that they had to pay to the SEC is the difference between someone's job.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's disgusting, man. That's despicable that our government is engaging in that kind of mafia type of cartel regulation where they're hurting employees, businesses, entrepreneurs, investors. It's a weird way to protect people. I'll tell you that much.
Two questions, because I know this man is busy. Like this man's a superstar now. So like I have to make sure that I don't run John's time. Or he's going to charge me. I wanted to ask you, we spoke about the CFTC and obviously all these organizations. Would it make sense for the government to go ahead and develop an agency that specifically overlooks our space if we're going to just settle here, free market regulation, have some sort of, I would say I think we've done a phenomenal job regulating our own market, but if we do bring in some sort of regulation to make all these institutional and corporations a little bit more confident in entering our space, should we have the government build an agency specifically that is fair, that overlooks the space? What do you think about that?
Well, it's a great question. And it goes to your point earlier when we were talking and you brought up the fact that you have the CFTC, the SEC, FinCEN, Treasury. You've got all these agencies that arguably has their hand on each asset. And so I don't think we need to create an entire agency, but you could create a subdivision of the CFTC that focuses on this. I mean, here's a scary thought that people don't realize, a lot of people. Gary Gensler doubled the size of the enforcement lawyers for crypto, right? So think about all that money, and he's asking for $2 billion, and he's doubling the size of the lawyers who are going to prosecute entrepreneurs. We could take that money, create a division in the CFTC dedicated to crypto. And then you could do what I talked about earlier, where the United Kingdom, FCA, and Japan has one called the Financial Services Agency, where they look at the tokens and they say, you're a security token, you're an exchange token, you're a utility token. And they give these guidelines. And so then if someone wants to, there are some exchanges that might get a broker dealer license and sell tokenized securities, because I think ultimately we'll get there, right? Well, your Apple shares will be tokenized in some kind of tokenization. And so I don't think we need a new agency, but a subdivision of the CFTC. But we've got to get it out of the SEC's hands, because all they want to do is file lawsuits and collect fees, like they did with BlockFi and all these other companies. You know what I mean? Ripple, Brad Garlinghouse, I don't know if you know this, but at Consensus, Brad Garlinghouse said when all said and done, Ripple will spend $100 million in legal fees.
So that, thank God that you said that, because that was a question I was going to ask. There, I think people, regardless of what side of the fence you sit on, you should appreciate Brad and companies spending millions of dollars to go ahead and get clarity for the entire space. I think people miss that. I guess last question, in regards to Ripple, what happens with Brad and Chris? Because obviously they're named.
I think they're going to get flat out victories because the SEC has to prove that Brad and Chris were reckless. And what that means is that it was they were reckless because it's so obvious that XRP is a security. Well, if it was so obvious that XRP is a security, why did you allow your lawyers to own it in 2018?
But hold on. Why did you hold on? But John, answer, because you're smarter than me. Like, I don't. You allowed this for 8-9 years,
right?
It took you 8-9 years to say that XRP is a security. Like, it really takes 8 to 9 years.
Yeah, not 8-9 years. You had specific meetings with Coinbase where Coinbase told you that it's not a security, but if you think otherwise, tell them and they won't list it. and they let them list it. So Brad and Chris, you can't be reckless in that level of recklessness if you're the agency. Also know this, up until April of 2018, the SEC employees could own XRP. So like, how could they be reckless in 2013 when your own enforcement lawyers are owning it in 2018? It's ludicrous, man. It's insane.
This is like, so I'm talking to you and like the clarity, like this word clarity should be highlighted because it's like pointing, like go there. It's like asking somebody for directions.
Right. It's crazy. It's complete insanity, and the SEC is out of control. And even the executive order that Biden signed, gave more deference to the CFTC. But Gary Gensler, he's trying to like come in and grab the whole bag, man.
So what was that about? So like, I was actually thrilled to hear the CFTC kind of like, they're pushing it towards them, or it felt that way. And recent reports came out kind of stating that like Gary's trying to reach over and, kind of like, become friendly with the CFTC, try to have one playbook,
Right.
And what do you think happens there? Do you think the CFTC is actually going to, come together with Gary and company and say, okay, well, go ahead and develop this one playbook? And
no, I think ultimately Gary's going to lose. I just think that there may be another year of pain, man. Like I said, if he sues an exchange claiming that everything other than Bitcoin is a security, I mean, what's that going to do to the market?
It's going
to take again, right? And that's what I mean is that it's like he's driving this market down. In my opinion, intentionally, there's no reason for him to do that. But it
doesn't help with Luna and with what happened with Luna, UST. Right. Let's keep the Celsius, the BlockFis. Obviously, a lot of hiccups. Every day it seems like you log in and there's news of somebody either being hacked or somebody is Voyager went ahead and stop, allowing people to take out deposits. I mean, he has ammunition to load up on.
He does. And the problem is you and I both know that if we had real sensible legislation, regulation, the way we've been talking about it, the market would go up.
Oh, for sure.
Right? You have that clarity. But these instances, unfortunately, exactly what you said, they're giving someone like him ammunition so he can come in and over-regulate. What we don't want is this over-regulation, but we definitely want clarity. You know what I mean? And I definitely support the SEC going after fraudsters. And
I 100%.
I'll support them 100% in that. But this nonsense that they're doing in this case has got nothing to do with enforcing securities laws and everything to do about politics and backdoor inside deals and all that kind of stuff, man.
I see that now, you are going to be one of the stars in our space to head these kind of movements for the people, and that's really cool to see, especially what you've done with. I mean, that's it takes a lot to go ahead and, stand. Listen, when I heard you were leading the charge for the XRP community, that was pretty cool. I was like, that is cool that especially came within the space. You were in this space. It's not like you were called from outside of the space to come in. So.
Well, listen, you invited me on like a year and a half ago, early on. So you were in tune. That's why I didn't hesitate to come back on to talk to you, because you have a huge audience, and we need people like you that are giving this issue the attention it deserves, so that people can really see, how dangerous is what's happening, and make it a movement, because I think that even in these midterm elections, I think that crypto is one of those areas that should be bipartisan, right? The 68,000 XRP holders that are joined, they're Republican, they're Democrat, they're Christian, they're Muslim, they're everybody. They're diverse, and I think that if we organize and we end this tribalism, and realize that have that free market and let the best system win. If Cardano outdoes Ethereum, great. If it doesn't, and Ethereum handles the scaling issues and the fees and all that, that's let it happen. Right?
Let the best protocol win.
Absolutely.
To me, it's like if it becomes that poop coin is our global currency one day, then it is what it is. That's what we settled on, because the people.
If Elon gets his way and we're all transacting in Doge, sure. Hey, I'm cool, whatever.
One thing: how many times do you get mistaken for Stone Cold Steve Austin?
I get that. I get a lot more of Heisenberg. Okay. From Breaking Bad.
That's a good one. And to end it on a obviously this was a great conversation. I appreciate you coming on. But to end it, give me your top five songs in your playlist.
Top five. See, I'm old school, man. So it's gonna be Dear Mama from Tupac. We're gonna have...
I love John. That's it. He won.
Huh?
I love that.
All right. But I'm a diverse guy, man. I have all kinds of music on my playlist. You know what I mean? From some country music, hip hop. But I'm old school. I'm from Detroit, so I grew up on old school hip hop, man. Like Houdini and Kumo D and Big Daddy Kane and KRS-One, like all.
Are you driving a Chevelle?
I have a 1972 Cutlass Supreme convertible, brother.
That was close. John, I do appreciate you coming on. This is a relaunch of Gokhshtein Unfiltered, so I appreciate you being the first guest, and I hope that you will make time in the future just to come on to update the entire community, obviously on the XRP issue and just, legal issues inside of the space in general. And honestly, I do appreciate you making that time for me today.
I appreciate you having me on. Anytime, brother. You
are awesome. And guys, please, John, let them know where they can go ahead and find you again. So, Twitter, right? You have Crypto Law also, right? Yeah, cryptolaw.us and John E Deaton 1 on Twitter. Guys, thank you very much for tuning in today. John is my fantastic guest today. Had a great conversation and looking forward to having many more with John as he hopefully I'm sure he'll become a superstar here. He already is, but hopefully he'll make some time for us. I'm sure he will. John, you have a great day, man.